Some more.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dawn.
All right. Well, welcome, everybody. So my name is Lesley Jones Sessler, and I am going to present on game schooling. I am a homeschooler. My son is 9 years old. We've been homeschooling for 5 years now. Prior to that, I was in education as a teacher and a principal and an assistant superintendent, also a literacy coach. I am presently a college instructor, and I do have my own business where I teach homeschool children, and I also am a consultant for homeschoolers and schoolers, school systems, and I'm also a homeschool coach. And I love homeschooling. So this is my 36th year as an educator, my 5th year as a homeschooler, and I love to game school. So my son, we are game schoolers, and this is what I'll be presenting on today. So that's my son. His name is Sammy. He's 9 years old, and well, I'll just make this interactive. When you see this picture, what comes to mind when you see this picture of Sammy?
Joy.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Joy. That's actually one of my favorite words. I will also say that I was a traditional educator and then I became a progressive educator, and I'll be talking a little bit about the difference tonight. But when I was a traditional educator, I did not have much joy, sadly, in my classroom with my students. I had to sort of sneak in the joy, which we managed to do on occasion. But when I was a progressive educator, there was joy all the time. And so I love progressive schools. I'm not against all schooling. I'm against ineffective schooling, just like I'm against ineffective homeschooling. So yes, game schooling is all about joy and love and hope and fun and excitement and experiential learning, learn by doing, making mistakes, taking risks. It's just the child being the child and no apologies for it whatsoever. So I'll go to the next slide if I can. Let's see. Okay, so this is something that, let's see if I can close this up so I can read it to you. This is by Mimi Brodsky Schenfeld. It's an excerpt from the book called Teaching in the Key of Life. And it says, "Teach me in the key of life. I am waiting for you. I am full of questions, adventures, wonder, curiosity, imagination. I am full of fears, doubts, confusions, nightmares, dreams. I love to sing. Teach me through songs. Let me paint, doodle, scribble, draw, carve, fix, sketch, do. I can't keep still. I need action. Keep it moving. Let me ask my questions, even if you don't know the answers. Do caterpillars know they're going to turn into butterflies? Where does the white go when the snow melts? Every day, let's celebrate something. Surprise me, amaze me, startle me, challenge me, try me, laugh with me, love me. Teach me in the key of life, and I promise I'll surprise, amaze, startle, challenge, try, enjoy, and love you." And I think this should be for every child, and hopefully every parent. So again, this is titled Gameschooling. I'm honored to be here in the Black Homeschooling Meetup, and I hope I'm able to tell you a few things tonight that you may not know. I hope that we can learn from each other. So the session description is, when it comes to homeschool education, in my opinion, play-based learning is the way to go. Children get to lead. And that's a lot for for, I think, sometimes a lot of adults to even release and to surrender and to let go of. That children get to lead, because I think so often we as adults think we have all the answers. We think we know it all. It has to be adult led. If they're in a school, teacher led. But here, children get to lead. They have self-directed learning. They use their imagination. They engage in experiential hands-on learning. They have choice and voice in their education, and they use their creativity and curiosity. With over 30 years in traditional, progressive, and homeschool settings, I have observed thousands of children with learning. To me, educational philosophies matter. Learning styles of children matter. Play in education matters. And so I'd like to talk about play in education and why our kids are worthy of this. And at any point, if you want to stop, just stop and ask questions, or we can have a conversation. So the learning objectives for tonight is to reflect on progressive education and game schooling, to explore educational philosophies, the learning styles of children, and play in education for children, and to learn best practices for homeschooling and educating children. Are there any questions right now? I can't even really see you also. Perhaps not. Okay, because I sort of minimized my screen here. Okay. So who is here today and why? And we sort of went through that in the introduction. And what are your passions, interests, and curiosities? Can we just take a minute right now, and if you want to share what your passions, your interests, and curiosities are when it comes to this topic of game schooling?
Yes.
Okay, you don't
How
have
do I raise
to.
my hand?
Oh, did you?
Oh, I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand. Am I unmuted? Y'all hear me?
I hear you. Just talk.
Oh,
I don't, yeah, I don't think we have to raise
okay,
hands
okay.
because
It's
it's not
fine.
many of us here. Or maybe there are 13. Wow.
I know I'm really interested in how your perspective on structuring game, because when I think about game schooling and play-led learning, what I feel like makes it effective is the fact that it's play, it's not really structured. But the way my brain works, but then how do I measure the impact of what my daughter is learning? How do you track the effects of the game? You know what I mean? It's
I
kind of,
do. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great question. And I will say that I think Shannon talked about this earlier. When I talk about game schooling, I'm not talking about video games. I'm not talking about I don't even know what it is. Is it Roblox, I think, and then Minecraft? My son
Yeah.
is
So okay.
9. He hasn't done those things. I'm not against it. Um, I just know that I want other things to be in place before that becomes part of his journey. I've spoken to many families and they wish they would have waited until much later. And I also know that sometimes children are addicted to those things. And
Yeah.
also there's sometimes a level of violence and things that my husband and I don't want him to be part of. So that will come perhaps at some point. But I know that there's also some benefits to those things as well. And
Mhm.
so maybe he's missing out on that right now. But for now, this is just our journey. Um, but when it comes to the child leading, so ever since Sammy was very little, it's just the exposure. It's exposing him to puzzles. It's exposing him to Legos. It's exposing him to art. It's exposing him to um, Play-Doh and to mud and to outdoor natural nature learning. It's exposing him to sticks and rocks and everything that he just wants to explore, and letting go and letting him lead. And so while he's exploring all of those things, as a mother and as his teacher, because we are our children's teachers, whether we like it or not, or facilitators or guides, whatever you want to say. And there's a lot that you will learn in observation. There's a lot that you will learn by if we keep our mouths shut, if we know it's like a song and a dance, like, like a dance really, like when to go in and to question, when to just be quiet. So there were days, and there still are, where Sammy will spend hours playing, and it's self-directed. It's child-led, it's unstructured, and he's learning so much. And I'll know when to go in and to ask a question. Hopefully it's an open-ended question, because I want to have some good critical thinking skills going on. Sometimes I'll join him, but there's so much that we can learn by our children. And when it comes to game schooling, sometimes some of the game schooling is intentional. So I might say to him, you know what, Sammy, right now we love playing Monopoly. Okay, we went from Monopoly Junior to the regular original Monopoly, and we could be playing Monopoly sometimes for 2 or 3 hours. And there's so much in there. There's real estate, there's math, there's currency, there's negotiation, there's auctioning of homes, there's reading, there's public speaking, there's sometimes we're writing down notes. There's so many life lessons in there, and academic lessons as well. And so that's how I am tracking, so to speak, his learning. And from those observations, that will then dictate to me, oh, maybe he needs help with his addition, or maybe he's ready for multiplication or division, or maybe he needs to understand mortgage more and real estate. Maybe he needs to um, study more of phonetic phonemic awareness and sounds, based on that, if he's reading the chance cards or not. So a lot comes out of the games, because I want them to be educational, and I also want them to be pleasurable. So I hope that, does that make sense?
Yes, I love that because literally Thursday, that's what we were doing at the collective. We literally were playing Monopoly. And that's how my brain was tracking. I was looking at, oh, okay, how are they doing with this part, or counting up, the cost to buy properties and stuff. So I love what you're sharing. And I also loved what you had on the, I think it was the first slide, about our children being worthy of
Mhm.
the play and this way of learning, because homeschooling my daughter has made me look at where I even deny myself some play and create unnecessary pressure and stress. I appreciate you highlighting that point too.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked the question. I also know now, from doing this for 5 years, that there has to be times when game schooling, the sole purpose is just to have fun. I'm not taking notes. I'm not writing anything down in my journal. This is not an assessment. This is not an informal or even a formal assessment whatsoever. This is about having fun. This is about being present while being present and being engaged. And sometimes, as homeschoolers, we can sometimes get, I know I've at times gotten so caught up with, oh my gosh, like, did I track today? Did I write down in the journal? Did I write down exactly what we were doing, and how much time we spent on it? And did he learn something? And when I assess him on this day, is he going to spit out the information to me? So often we could get caught up in that, I think, that it sometimes can steal the joy in the moment. And so I think I've been there, and I try to be just intentional, like, okay, what is this about right now? What is most important? There have been times that Sammy is building a puzzle, and there were times when he's like, you know what, I'm done. And he was done. He did not have to finish. And that's a lot for parents to sometimes accept. Like, well, wait a second, I want you to finish that. No, 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 no. It's okay that he's done. Let him go do something else. Maybe he'll come back to it or not. And so that's something that I think we also have to think about. I'm gonna let somebody in. Shannon, you still there? Just let somebody in.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry for
No, it's
Peter.
okay.
Here.
Okay, cool. So here's another picture. Hopefully you see joy. This is one of my favorite pictures, because we do not see a lot of children enjoying outdoors. We don't. We don't see a lot of children enjoying game schooling, card games, board games, outdoor play. Many of our children today are on electronics. Many of our children are addicted to that. Many of our children cannot hold conversations with us, eye contact and concentration and focusing. And many of our children just don't know the joy of being outside for hours on end and enjoying the fresh air and digging in the ground and climbing trees. All of that is so important. So this is one of my favorite pictures of Sammy, just lighting and doing what I think every child should be doing. So my question to you all is, do you believe that families are their children's first nurturers, teachers, and advocates?
Of course.
Yeah.
Good, good, because they are. They are. I did mention I'm a college instructor, and this is one of the most important things that I must mention it to my students every single week because I've worked with colleagues, teachers, that will think, no, I know more than you. I'm credentialed. I went to school to study education, and I know your child better than you do. And sometimes parents are sometimes intimidated. Sometimes parents are not welcomed into schools. Sometimes parents feel like, well, I trust the school, I trust the teacher. Obviously, they know more than I do. And so it's very important for families to know that you are your child's first teacher and nurturer and advocate. And don't you ever forget that, no matter how you show up. Here are two pictures side by side. In the first picture, we pretty much see children that are sitting at individual desks. Uh, More than likely, they're learning rote learning, memorization. It's very traditional. There's a lot that's in that picture. And then if you look at the picture adjacent to it, uh, this is progressive education. This is children sitting in a group, children working together. Diversity matters. Hands-on learning matters. Time spent on working together matters. And so this again is what I love. When I was growing up, there were no computer games, no cable TV, and definitely no internet. But we did have a wild and creative imagination, and playing with your siblings and neighbors was such a treat. Those days, I will never forget. And so when I when I think about Sammy and game schooling, when I think about the children, every Monday I teach a math and science and game schooling class for 6 hours to homeschoolers. And every Friday I teach a reading and writing and game schooling class to homeschoolers for 6 hours. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I teach at the YMCA, and the class that I teach is called Game Schooling because this is so important because children learn through games. When we grew up, we were outside. I was playing hide and go seek. I was playing street ball in the streets. I was climbing trees. I was making mud pies, right? No computer, no internet, no cable TV, none of those things. And I was staying out there for hours on end and I playing in the box. I mean, I just remember giving my kid a cardboard box and he just played in it for days and he made like a time machine out of it, a time capsule, and he just so many things around the house that we take for granted, and kids just want that, a piece of paper or a paper towel roll. I mean, just little things that they can just make come to life. And so it's really about using the imagination. It's about them being creative and curious and wild about learning. And again, we have to make this intentional. And for children that are really into technology, we're going to have to balance that out. In our home, we have a no digital day on Sundays. No digital day. We don't do that. We play games. We talk to each other. My son watches football with my husband, and they love that. It's their time to bond. And it's just no technology. And then the rest of the days, there's some technology, but again, it's monitored. My son has never, ever, ever, when I said maybe, Sammy, I need you to do XYZ. He's never been like, upset or angry or like, no, no. What I do is I respect his time. He may say, well, mommy, can I have a few more minutes on it? And I'll say, well, how much longer do you have? And he'll look and he'll tell me, and I'll say, yes, you can finish it first, because I want to respect him as a human being, as an individual. But I know that there's some families where children will fight them and they'll cry and they are so addicted. And so it does take a while to break them out of that cycle, but it can be done. So this is Sammy outside in the summertime, playing in the water, and just that whole attitude. Like, I love life. And, you know, children's childhood is so short compared to the rest of their lives, when decades upon decades will be growing. And so I want to keep this forever and ever. I want this little boy to wake up. Something that I will do at times is, and I did a lot when he was younger and he did not really have a schedule, so to speak, is he'd wake up and I'd say, what do you want to do today? And I just thought, isn't that great to ask a child, what do you want to do today, right? What do you want to do? Part of our schedule now on Wednesdays, we have Wild Homeschool Wednesdays. And so it's whatever he wants to do. So it might mean we go to do pottery at the pottery studio. We might go to the movie theater and watch the movie, be the only ones in the theater at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, eating popcorn and all the crazy junk food. Or we might go bowling, or we might go to a museum, or we might go to a park. Just so many things, but it's really for him to decide. And again, it's just keeping that play that is important. So earlier, I kind of talked to you a little bit about traditional education versus progressive education. So real quickly, there's, and this is what a lot of parents and some teachers don't know this, because maybe they just weren't trained in it. I was trained in it as a teacher, and I taught in schools that were traditional and progressive. And so I'm not shocked when I will say to a teacher, so when you graduate from going to school to study to become a teacher, do you want to become a traditional teacher or a progressive teacher? And they'll look at me like, what are you talking about? Or a parent, I might say, so is your child's school a traditional school or progressive school? And they're like, what are you talking about? Because a lot of times parents will buy homes in an expensive neighborhood that's got high property taxes, and it's like, oh, it's a blue ribbon school and great scores, and they'll think it's wonderful, but it's the worst place really maybe your child wants to be. And so I think it's important. And so I'm teaching this to you. Hopefully, if you don't know this, hopefully when this is over, you'll know the difference. So when you look at the traditional approach, the curriculum is prescribed. When it's progressive, the curriculum is more flexible and influenced by student interests and curiosities. The next one, for a traditional approach, students take a passive role. But in a progressive approach, students play an active role, often working collaboratively, just like we saw at the table with the children working together. Student engagement is high. When you think about the next one, it says, teachers' primary role is to introduce students to content and skills. But in progressive education, teachers facilitate and/or guide learning by creating a learning environment that provides students with choice and exploration. When it comes to traditional the approach, tools that are used are textbooks, workbooks, and presentations. The other side of it in progressive education, materials and activities are more diverse, often involving community resources and direct experiences. And finally, with traditional approaches, the emphasis is on students acquiring knowledge and content, whereas with the progressive approach, the emphasis is on students learning to think, ask questions, critically analyze, and evaluate information. So this is important in game schooling, because as I'm thinking about homeschooling my child, as I'm thinking about homeschooling other children, and teaching courses on game schooling, and going and teaching game schooling in other organizations like the YMCA, I want to make sure that we're doing it the progressive way. So I want to make sure that the children have direct experiences playing games, that the engagement is high. I mean, there are times the doors open at the YMCA and the children are loud and they are excited in there, and people are walking by like, what's this all about? Or on Mondays and Fridays when we're in the library and people pass by and they're like, what's going on in here? The other day, my children were making Valentine's Day cookies, right, at the library. And it was just so wonderful. Or they're creating science experiments. And people are walking by like, what's going on? Can my child come here? And I'm like, well, it's just a homeschool group that I have, but they can see the student interest and the curiosities. They see the students working collaboratively. They're together working in groups, and the materials are diverse, and the students are learning to think. I'm asking higher order thinking questions, open-ended. I'm thinking about Bloom's taxonomy, which is another um, curriculum approach when it comes to children, wanting to take them from just understanding to actually thinking critically and really asking questions and inventing and creating experiences on their own. So what I would say to each of you is that as you are homeschooling your children, really think about the approach. Are you a traditional educator? Are you a progressive educator? What do you want to have? Are you a little bit of both? Are you eclectic? Because there are times I'm eclectic. I'm not throwing away all the workbooks, no, or maybe a textbook or presentations, but I'm knowing when and how to use it, when to take lots of breaks. But I think it's very important for parents when they're homeschooling to think about how does my child learn? What do I need to reach my child to make them very happy? And fulfilled, and for them to learn. Because again, we're homeschooling our children, and a lot of us are saying that we're going to do a better job than the schools, right? That's why a lot of us are doing it. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. But this is very important. The next slide is, who is this child? Be the girl on the right. So you all have seen this slide before, haven't you? I love this slide, be the girl on the right, because you see she's wild. She's like upside down. Like, I love that. I love that. I want every child to be who they are in this world and not to feel ashamed of it at all. 10 things every parent should know about play. Children learn through their play. Play is healthy. Play reduces stress. Play is more than meets the eye. Make time for play. Play and learning go hand in hand. Play outside. There's a lot to learn about play. Trust your own playful instincts. Play is a child's context for learning. So you may come across others who are doubting what you're doing, and it seems like your child's just playing all the time. Let them know, do the research. Play is education. This is Sammy. A lot of our days are spent on the living room floor or on the bed or outside just playing. Here we're playing Chutes and Ladders, and look at how excited this little boy is. And he's learning math skills in here. He's doing active listening and active speaking. And as the pawns are going up the ladder or down the chute, he's counting each step. I mean, this is all math and education, and it's play. And so this is game schooling. Again, here's traditional education versus progressive education. We pretty much went over this, but rigid rows of desks versus spaces are flexible. Focus on testing and grades versus ongoing formative assessment. Power and control. Are we homeschool families where do as I say, you got to be up at this time and I'm taking control, or is there some trust and some openness, So and again, whatever your journey is your journey, but this is just what I think is important. Children learn as they play, and most importantly, in play, children learn how to learn. Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood, and that's from Mr. Rogers. I might be dating myself there. This is Sammy. We lots of baking. This was a few years ago, and yeah, we've got the chef hats, we've got the aprons, and there's so much learning when it comes to baking. There's science, there's math. Sometimes there's social studies, depending on what you're baking and where in the world this particular food comes from, different languages. There's communication. So he's doing everything. I am his guide. I'm his facilitator. He's measuring. He's opening the oven. Of course, I'm going to put it into the hot oven and take it out. But other than that, he's mixing and it's a big mess. It is a big mess, and I'm perfectly fine with that because we'll clean it up, you know? Here he is. I think there he was making brownies, I believe. But this is what we do. This is game schooling. Play is not a break from learning. Play is the learning. This is one of my favorite pictures. And so I think you saw earlier in the presentation, the water table was outside on the deck. And I remember when it turned a new season. It went from summer to autumn and then winter. And I remember seeing this water table out on the deck, and I kept thinking, man, I wish I could bring this inside. It's just there. Like he's not gonna use it. It's on the deck. And then suddenly the light bulb went out in my head and it was like, bring it inside. Just bring the daggone thing inside. And that's what I did. I put towels down on the floor. We brought that thing in, and my son went to work. And my son had game schooling and playing and measuring and sinking and floating and you name it, math, science, and exploration every day. And yeah, it was messy. And yeah, sometimes sand got on the ground and water went everywhere. He's only going to be young once, and he's learning. And it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I'm going to clean up the house. It's going to be okay. And so sometimes you just have to do the unconventional and just make it happen. Albert Einstein said, play is the highest form of research. The highest form of research. Imagine that. And as you can say, that is a little hut outside. I think, oh, someone's coming in. Okay. Let's see if I can go to the next one. Play and education. So I'm not going to read through each of these, but just the basic titles. Play is meaningful. Play is joyful. Play is actively engaging. Play is iterative, and play is socially interactive. This is Sammy. Sammy also, every year he's had like a different homeschool experience. So for about 2 to 3 years, he went to a farm and forest school. And then he also went to a nature school. Hi, Sammy. It was maybe, I think he went maybe 2 days a week, sometimes, yeah, it was 2 days a week. And so he was out with his little boots and it was year round. So it was snowing. It was like less -2 degrees, and he's out there all bundled up and he's climbing trees and making forts and huts and studying mushrooms and snakes and mud pies and you name it, butterflies, birds. Uh, and he loved it. And so just as homeschoolers, it's like, what are we doing to make sure that our children really are learning about as much as they can when it comes to life? And so I love the fact that this was unstructured. The kids would just go there and whatever they wanted to do, they were able to do it. And I love that for Sammy. Here, I'm gonna put my glasses on for this one. Elements of play-based learning. So it's self-chosen, it's enjoyable, it's unstructured, it's process-oriented, and it's make-believe. There's so much that we're learning when children have make-believe play. Uh, Investigations. Here Sammy is. He had his own little cupboard, that was specifically for him. He still has it. His plates and his forks and knives, and yes, knives. He cuts limes, and that's what he learned at the farm and forest school, like knives and a hammer and a saw at an early young age. And we've got to just let them try, let them try. And so he would go and get what he needed every single day when it was time to have our eating. The benefits of play-based learning. This is so important that you know this, and I'm sure you do, and you explain this to family members if they come over and they're like, your child's always playing, what's going on? Well, there's cognitive development. They're gaining literacy and language skills. They're building sensation and perception abilities. They're practicing focusing on a task. They're sharpening their research and inquiry skills. There's more there. There's also physical development. They're practicing fine and gross motor skills. They're building muscles, agility, coordination. They're fostering physical confidence. It helps them with stress management. Then there's a social emotional development piece of this. They're building friendships. They're cooperating. They're resolving conflicts. They're exploring their own interests, and they're practicing impulse control. And back to my students every Monday and Friday, when they come to me for the math, science, game schooling day on Mondays, or the reading, writing, and game schooling day on Fridays, we start with an hour of game schooling. Sometimes it goes to an hour and a half, and there's games all over the room, and they get to choose what they want to choose. So they might be playing Monopoly. They might be playing Too Many Monkeys. They may then go over to Super Big Boggle. They may want to do Twister. They may want to go to Connect Four. They may want to do chess or checkers. May want to do rat-a-tat-roll. They may want to do, my gosh, there's so many, taco cat, goat cheese, pizza. They may want to draw. It's free, unstructured learning. And there are times that they may resolve conflicts on their own. I could sort of tell, okay, they're having an issue with who's going to go first. Are we going to go clockwise or counterclockwise? What are we going to do? We can't find a pawn. We have to create a new pawn or what have you. And again, it's like that dance. I'm like, okay, Lesley, let them resolve it on their own. And I really practice that. I don't have to resolve it for them, and they do. Now, of course, if I need to, then I will help them resolve it. Here Sammy is again on our deck and just enjoying. We're playing Chutes and Ladders there. I'm not going to go through this, but as an educator and as a homeschooler, again, this was important to me. And I would advise, if you're interested, I would advise that maybe you look at some of the educational theorists. Because again, I remember when I started homeschooling him 5 years ago. And for me, it was important for me to know, what philosophy am I going to follow? Because if I'm going to choose a curriculum, perhaps, am I going to choose a curriculum that's more Maria Montessori based? It's more hands-on. Is it more John Dewey? It's more Lev Vygotsky. Or am I going to be a little bit more traditional? Am I going to be a little bit eclectic again? So for me, it really was trying to figure out, who are the educational theorists? What did they study? What were their theories? And for me, I wanted to do a little bit of each, not each one, but I love John Dewey, the fact that he's experiential learning. And I love Lev Vygotsky because he's learning by doing. I love some things about Maria Montessori, not everything. So for me, it was important that I was able to know different theorists. Sammy does do some digital play in education. We talked about OutSchool earlier. He does a program called Reading Eggs, for example, and there's math seats on it, and he does mental math, and he really learns his addition, subtraction, multiplication. Right now, Sammy is 9, and we're already going into pre-algebra. Because with homeschooling, as you all know, the sky is the limit. I don't have to hold him back, or the group that I'm working with. And so he's now been doing multiple digits of multiplication and long division for some time now. And it's important for me to keep on going because he's not in a box. That's one of the reasons I did not want to have him go to school. I didn't want him to be confined to this box where in some schools, not all schools, but in some schools, they just deal with that level curriculum. And if your child is above that or below that, sadly, someone mentioned that today, I think it was Desiree, that's unfortunate because there should be something that's called differentiated instruction. That's a term that's used in schools, and it should be a term that hopefully every educator knows, which is, if I have 20 children in my classroom, maybe I'm going to have 20 lesson plans or 10 lesson plans. I'm going to give students who are above this certain level higher level thinking work, and students who are below, I'm going to give them easier work so that they are not frustrated and they feel really good and confident in their learning. But I'm not against digital play in education. Sammy loves it. He loves it. Again, it's just about balancing. Here are more of the educational theorists. We do a lot of science in our home. This is game schooling, a lot of art projects. So we just turned the kitchen into like our science lab. More educational theorists. Here's Sammy outdoors, and we have something that whenever we see a puddle, he jumps 3 times. And I jump with him. It's something that we did ever since he was little. And honestly, when my boy look, if he gets married one day, and if there happens to be a puddle on his wedding day, it rained on my wedding day, there's a puddle, go on and jump 3 times. And hopefully you're marrying a woman who understands the same thing. She got the assignment and she jumps too, because I just don't want that to ever leave his world. And he still does it. He's like, Mom, a puddle, jump 3 times. And we jump 3 times. It's so important. Uh, know the different learning styles of your children. I think that's really important for game schooling. So is your child a visual learner, a musical auditory learner? Are they a verbal learner? Are they a physical kinesthetic learner? Is your child a social learner, a solitary learner, a naturalist learner, a logical mathematical learner? The bottom line is we all learn in different ways. And so really think about, maybe your child is both verbal and logical. Maybe your child is solitary and also a naturalist. Maybe your child is completely a visual learner. Maybe you have 2 or 3 children you're homeschooling, and each one is something different, right? And each one has their own different curriculum. Again, it's not a one size fits all. And so this is part of game schooling too, because I know if my child is a logical mathematical child, I want to get games for him. So a lot of times what I will do is I will go to Amazon and I will type in what are the best games for logical and mathematical thinking for children ages 6 to 8 or 6 to 9. Okay. Or what are some great visual games in mathematics or social studies for children in this age group or grade group, what have you. So you really want to think about observing your child and using this information to figure out, wow, my son or my daughter, like I noticed that they really love to do role playing. They really love to tell stories and poetry. They love to hold a discussion. Maybe you have a social child, or maybe you have a child who loves to design maps and show patterns and create codes and make timelines. Maybe they're more logical and mathematical. So again, this is so important, I think, when it comes to homeschooling and game schooling, because we really want to know our children. Sammy loves Legos. He now will, I think maybe over 5,000 pieces, and he's 9, and he will sit there and he will do the 18 plus boxes, way over 5,000 pieces. He's done the White House. He's done the Golden Gate Bridge. He did the beautiful black cat recently. He just did a chessboard set. I wish I had it. He loves Legos. And he started with this maybe when he was 2 years old, I think. And so it continues to build. Here are the 7 styles of learning. I'm not going to go through them, but again, it's physical kinesthetic, logical mathematical, social interpersonal. Again, knowing your particular children. One of my favorite pictures again. Here's Sammy. Oh my gosh, he's so big now. We would just he would create art, and upstairs he's got a wall of so many of his art pieces, and just he had to do everything. So I try my best as a game schooler. I don't want to open up the paint for him. Here's the paint. Here, go get the bowls. Go get the brushes. Again, I'm the facilitator. I'm the guide. I take a seat back. He's got to do it all. And so for hours on end, he's painting. He's painting his little masterpieces. There's reggae music playing, right? Or there's rhythm and blues, or there's classical music playing, and he is learning a lot. This is going into a child's ZPDs and just really understanding where a child is at their learning process. Are they just learning something for the first time? Are they in the middle of it? Or do they not really understand it? And we really want to try to find a child's zone of proximal development. This is by Lev Vygotsky, the theorist. But it's very important that our children are safe and they're knowledgeable and they become skilled learners. And so as advocates for children, I want to help examine the thinking, the attitudes, and the behaviors. Here Sammy is. We go to one of our favorite places in the neighborhood, and it's all about different games. And so here we are playing checkers. And again, this is Vygotsky's Zone of Proximal Development. Here's Sammy with some of the games. This was a particular Sunday, a no digital game, and we sat right there at that kitchen island. I think he and I played for about maybe an hour, and then my husband and I tag teamed, and he came and he played with Sammy for like a whole nother hour. But we probably have, and I'm looking right now, probably about, oh my gosh, definitely well over, gosh, maybe about 100 games, about 100 games, a little bit over. Um, and a lot of times we'll go to Goodwill and we'll get games at Goodwill that are 99 cents or 79 cents, $2.99. Sometimes we'll get brand new games. Sometimes people will ask, what do you want? What does he want? And it's all about games. And so, um, and now that I'm teaching game schooling, I'm also able to put it in my budget as a business owner. But as you can see, it's just so important. Mancala is one of our favorite games. I think we got those at the $5 store, five and below, I think it's called. And that's an African game. It's a math game, a logical game, a strategic strategy game, and it's amazing. So I highly recommend Mancala. Um, this is again the Bloom's taxonomy. So we really want to get children from stage one of remembering to understanding to applying those skills to analyzing those skills to evaluating those skills to creating those skills. And so you were talking earlier. Please forgive me, I can't think of your name right now, but the amazing woman who's got her own micro school. I'm so sorry. About like assessing children. So this is a way to assess children, you know, when they're playing, when they're working on a project or an activity, having an experience, what stage are they when it comes to Bloom's taxonomy? Are they only at the apply stage where they're solving a problem, they're operating it, they're demonstrating it? Because a lot of our children, sadly, in many of our schools and in many of our homes, they stop at a certain level. And we really want to get our children from level one of remembering all the way up to creating, to actually investigating and constructing and conjecturing and assembling. We really want to make sure with Bloom's taxonomy that we're able to say to families, if we're educating other person's children or even our own, if we have to hand in reports to the state for homeschooling, that my child with Bloom's taxonomy and game schooling is actually at the evaluation level. And a goal is to get my child to the create, investigate, formulate level. So just more information for you all. Here Sammy is again baking in our kitchen. Here he is fishing at his farm and forest school. Here, what's in your children's hearts? I am reaching, rolling, crawling, standing, cruising. I have a song. I'm climbing and jumping to learn. I can't stay still. I want to paint. I carry a book everywhere I go, which is so important. Something else, I'm sorry I don't have these pictures for you, but when we go out to dinner as a family, or when we go out to lunch, or when we go out to breakfast, we are that family. And I'm telling you, in all honesty, I don't think I've ever seen another family at a restaurant like us. Ever. We bring games. I can probably go into my phone right now and I can probably pull out 200 pictures from the last 6, 7 years of us playing games. I am intentional about that. I am intentional. I am purposeful. I am mindful. I don't want us all the time. I'm not saying this is like all the time. There's sometimes that we go there and we'll have conversation. But I want us to have games in the car. So when we go into the restaurant and we order our food and we're waiting for it to come, we're playing a game. We're socializing. We're not on our phones and not talking to one another. And people will walk by us and they will say, "Oh my gosh, we don't see this anymore. You all are actually playing Monopoly or Connect Four or Too Many Monkeys or Super Big Boggle." Like they really are surprised when they see this happening. And what's really sad sometimes is I'll look at other children and they're looking at us like, "Oh man, I want to go over there and play with them." But even in the car, if we're going on a long trip or if we're flying somewhere, I want to be intentional. Does Sammy have some games in addition to books, in addition to his iPad, because he's going to be on there watching a movie too? but does he have games that Canudo is a game that he plays by himself. There are other little games that children can play by themselves as well. But that is important to me, in addition to having books as well. And that's a whole nother conversation that perhaps I can present on at some time. But I carry a book everywhere I go. I've got happy feet, got to dance. I like bugs. I want to be your friend. That's why I hit you. I love my mom, daddy, brother, sister, and you. I. Game schooling games. These are just some of the games, just some that we have. Zingo, Sight Words Bingo, Money Bags. Let's see, with Great States, that's about geography. Clumsy Thief is a math book. Connect Four, Connect Four. The Genius Square, Shoots and Ladders, Giant Uno, Trouble, Exact Change, that's a math game. Guess in 10, Simon Says, Logic Roots, Say Cheese Cafe, Moncala, Poop Bingo, Taco Cat, Goji's Pizza. These are all just different games, some of them that we have in our collection. This is Sammy outside chasing the ball. And this is the end of my presentation. So I hope that all of you enjoy what you're doing, caring and teaching for your young children and supporting your families. I wish you peace and blessings. I hope and pray for you and your families. I will have my website up this week. It's called Love of Literacy for Homeschoolers.com. And my name is Lesley, and I've enjoyed presenting. And hopefully I can bring you all back on here now. Thank you. Oh,
Wow, thank you so much for all of that, Lesley.
you're welcome.
So
Any
your,
questions?
I have a quick question and then I'll step back. Your slides, are you comfortable with sharing your slides in the folder, the shared folder?
I'm sorry, let me take this slide off. Sorry. That was from another presentation. Yes, can I just like send it afterwards once I remove those slides? Is that okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. That is awesome. Yeah, does anyone else have any questions for Lesley?
I have a question. I finally figured out how to raise my hand. So two things. I had a comment. This reminds me of a training I did on filial therapy, which is play therapy for the children. So when you kept saying play is learning, play is education, I kept hearing too, like play is also therapy,
Yes.
and communication of things that they cannot articulate. And it really does build the emotional IQ. So thank you for that reminder. And then secondly, if we wanted you, because I'm thinking I want this training for my learning specialist at the micro school, should I just email you, call you? Like, what's your preference of communication?
You can call me. My number's on the screen there.
Mhm.
Or you can, let's see, hopefully we can become Facebook friends now
Oh, I
that,
love that. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm okay
so
with that.
it's Lesley Jones Sessler. And you can, I would say if you email me, do the lesliejs@yahoo.com. That's a
Okay.
better one, but sure, absolutely. I'd love to give a presentation. It's all about sharing the knowledge, and hopefully
Yeah, this is really
this was
good.
good information for you all. And again, I want to be able to support my beliefs. And for me personally, that comes from all of the years as an educator and knowing that as I'm homeschooling my child, um, I, it's just good for me because I'm able to think about all the experiences that I had when I taught for 14 years and the things I don't want to do, you know, because maybe I messed up doing those things, right? And then the things that I do want to do because I know that he deserves and children deserve these opportunities. And so knowing that my children play for an hour and a half, um, when they come to me. It's just so beautiful. And their parents come, and if a child's running late, it's not an issue. A parent's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, they're running late." I'm like, "We're homeschoolers. They're supposed to be late, you know? It's okay." Uh, but it's a wonderful thing when we could be so relaxed and carefree and laid back. And the learning happens because trust me, when game schooling is over, after it's over and then it's time for math and science, they are learning and they're still learning through games and creating science experiments. And when they're doing math, we start with a game and then we'll go into the pencil and the paper and I'm at the board and they're at the board and they're solving problems and then we'll go back and forth with the game. So it's all throughout the day. It is all throughout the day, learning by doing, learning through play. And so that's the type of homeschooler I am and the type of educator I am, and it works for our kids.
I love that. Is there any published data that says children need a certain amount of play to turn all of these, mechanisms on in their brain on? Have you come across any kind of studies or any information around that?
I don't have the statistics, but yes, there's a
Okay.
lot of data that's out there, a lot, because it is so sad. Um, it's so sad that what happens with a lot of our children, especially those that are going to go to school, and I'm sure you all have experiences to some degree, when children go to preschool, it's all about play, right? And then maybe when they're
Hmm.
in kindergarten, it's about play and taking a nap, right? And going outside. And then the minute that they get to first grade, or maybe now it's even kindergarten, because now kindergarten is like what first and second grade used to be, right? No more naps, no more play, no more recess. And it's very sad. A lot of children are depressed. They're anxious.
Hmm.
They have the high stakes standardized tests that they now have to learn from teaching to the test and passing. And there are studies that show that children are more stressed than adults because of all those factors. And so when you now have children that are playing and are learning through play, it reduces so much of that stress, so much of the anxiety. But again, it's you have to really make sure that as an adult, you're okay with it, you value it, you understand the
Mm.
philosophy behind it, and you trust the child. You trust the child because if you don't trust the child, if you don't let go, if you don't just let them lead, then you're the one telling them what to do. No, you should do it this way. And what is the purpose of this? And what are you learning? Like, just let them be. So yes, there's lots of research, and I'll be more than happy
Okay.
to get some to you. But yes, our children, and I will say this too. Um, Sweden and Denmark, I believe, have the best education system in the
Okay.
world. And if I'm not mistaken, I have to go back and look at my research again. I believe children go to school when they're maybe 7 years old, seven, I think it is. And there's a lot of play in education. There's a lot of play that they believe in. Even over in Australia, it's
Okay.
learn by doing. It's over here in the United States of America, sadly, that our school systems, a lot of ours, it's just sadly failing the children. Our children
Yeah.
they're not learning
Mm-mm.
in many school systems. Some that they are, but I mean, just look at the data. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. I think I heard on the news yesterday, something I was listening to that said we rank like 40 in the world. Like
Yep.
we're in the 40th position in terms of education. So yeah, we got to do better. Thank you for this. This was really insightful. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
Amazing. Any other questions for Lesley? This was illuminating and very affirming, and I'm very thankful myself. And I was definitely like jotting down and looking at the different teaching styles and theories. So I very much appreciate that. But definitely, it's like the affirmation that our babies are the leaders of their education and should be valued and validated from that standpoint. And definitely hitting home with the last point about like the kids are depressed. And a thing that I, by nature of work that I do, like having to think about like suicidality, especially when it comes to Black folks, and how young that starts. you know, like that it's not a thing that we talk about quite often. But just thinking about like how the schools and the structures of them are playing such a huge role in our kids feeling, you know, like the pressure is so heavy that they can't do it anymore, you know, like, which is really scary. So I appreciate that personally.
Absolutely. Good. Excellent. Anyone else?
All right. It looks
I
like
have one more question. I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead.
One more question. I saw that slide where you talked about like the different learning styles. I think it was 7 different learning styles. Are there like play styles? Are there styles of play, or are they kind of like the same concept?
There are play styles. I should get that to you.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, yes. In fact, oh boy, there's a really great woman out in, her name is Rekka, and she's out in London, and she does a lot when it comes to the different types of play styles. Yes, I will get that information for you because I should have had that on here. I apologize. That is so important. Yes, I'll get that for you, okay? And I know you talked about the data. Was there one more thing? I think the data, the different play styles. Yes. Yes. So I guess I just want to just, I can't drive home enough that really take the time to observe your child and really know how they're learning. It's a good idea to maybe have a journal, take notes, um, what makes them happy, and fulfill that. So if you see your child has a fascination with trains early on, or dolls, or rocks, pebbles, Legos, like feed into your child. If you see they love to build, they love to explore, they love to write, they love to doodle, they love to draw, whatever, like that's going to give you information that you need for your child, and then go for it. Expose your child to that. It's not a one size fits all. It's not you saying to your child, this is the type of learner you are. It's really us sitting back and observing them and have fun with them. Thank you.
All right. So if y'all don't have any more questions, I'm going to stop the recording. I appreciate y'all. And we'll have that teed up for